You are now listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc, sharing insights through real, honest, and practical ways to improve your communication and relationships. Featuring your hosts, Dr. Pamela Kreiser, Meredith Edwards Nagel, and Teighlor Polendo.
The goal of today is to talk about how to give feedback. But before we get into that, go back in your mind and remember what it feels like to get bad feedback. You know that feeling when you want to go straight to defense mode.
Oh, yeah.
Just having that on you, right?
Yeah. So I have some examples of bad feedback. You need to do better. That was a complete disaster. I do not know why you messed that up so badly.
Okay.
Your presentation was too long, your slides were confusing, and you spoke too fast. Your report was full of errors, and it seems like this is a pattern.
Ooh.
Ouch,
Now,
right?
This sounds like very much in an educational space. This wouldn't be like from personal experience with this. I don't remember you saying these things to us.
No, I have to give a lot of feedback. You got to be careful. You got to be careful. So for the last 6 months, you've really dropped the ball.
Damn.
I wouldn't have done it that way. And you always interrupt.
Damn. Yeah, so I feel like there's nowhere to go from those. It's just halt, stop.
Right. You're doing it wrong. Right. Something like that. What do you do at that point?
Are you expecting the other person to go, okay, I bend the knee?
Isn't this one, why do you ruin everything?
Oh, you said that.
This is one of our biggest fights. And just to lighten the mood a little bit, the topic of conversation was syrup. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay, that helps us.
Helps us feel less defensive for your husband.
happy.
Yeah. I was about to call him.
Yeah.
Check on him after this.
Is he all right?
Okay, so all of that to say that we've all felt this weight of terrible feedback on us, right? Why are you ruining everything? Wow, I would hate to hear that.
And I think part of why they're so harsh sounding or poorly received is there's no way to correct it. Why do you ruin everything? What am I ruining? What is it that's ruined? There's no real concrete thing to get into. And because of that, there's no real path for correction.
Yeah. So I think we should give some tools for people out there and ourselves, apparently, for how to give feedback without sounding too harsh and losing your message and all of this.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to start with why it feels so hard to do this. Why is it so hard to give constructive feedback? And Gottman basically touches on communication and emotional attunement, how your tone and delivery matter as much as what you're saying. Essentially, Gottman can predict the success or failure of a relationship, and he notes in the research that the tone in which you can provide constructive feedback to people can immediately put them in a place of defense or bidding for connection in that relationship.
For sure.
And so if you want your relationship to succeed, then you want to tune in to how you're saying a message to a person, and vice versa. You want that on your end too, right? I don't want somebody to just feedback with nowhere to go, like you said. I think that's an element of why it feels so hard. Also, at Harvard Business Review says that 40% of managers find giving feedback stressful or difficult. So people that manage other people feel this way. So if you feel like this, it's real.
And 65% of employees say they want more feedback. Yeah, there's managers who say it's stressful giving feedback. And then there's employees saying, we want more. 65% is a pretty high number. In another study, 92% of the respondents said that negative feedback, if it was delivered appropriately, would effectively improve their performance. That's 92% of people said that, if it was done well, which kind of also tells us it's probably not done well enough.
Yeah. Dang. True.
So how do we do it, Meredith?
We have two things we want to get into: positive feedback sandwich and something called situation behavior impact. So we're going to start with the positive feedback sandwich.
Okay, so this is the first strategy.
Yes, 2 strategies in total. First strategy, positive feedback sandwich. So visualize 3 things. If you're out there like me and you need to see it, you're going to give a actual positive comment, not bullshit, actual positive Taylor. You're going to give, this is hard. We're not going with sarcasm, does not win here. So 3 parts: positive comment, constructive feedback is what you're going to provide. And you're going to end that sandwich with another supportive closing, if you will.
So a positive comment, a constructive comment, and then a nice close.
Yes.
That's my formula.
Okay, so I have some examples. Here's a work one. Hey, that presentation you gave was super engaging. I really liked how you told the story, explained the situation. Something I'd want you to look out for, though, is timing. There's your constructive feedback. We did go over by 10 minutes. Overall, though, you really held people's attention in that meeting. So you're softening a blow. That doesn't mean indirect passive-aggressive communication. That's like what I want to highlight with this, because I can get there, I think, really easily. Okay, another example here would be parent to child. So I liked this one. Hey, I really love how creative you were with that Lego world you built. The buildings are awesome, but when you're done, I need you to clean them up so people don't trip over them. You're doing a really good job helping around the house.
Okay.
I think that's older kid. I'm thinking like 6 and up on that one. And then the one between spouses, this one is subject is in the morning, eldest child has a little fan or like white noise machine in her room. I find that we each are responsible for, we have 2 kids, so everybody gets a kid, goes downstairs in the morning. That's how we start the day. So you should turn off the sound machine of the kid you're responsible for, I think. Sounds about right. So it was like, hey, I know you have a lot on your plate lately, and I really appreciate everything that you're juggling. Just a heads up, it's been a few days in a row that the sound machine gets left on. I don't notice it till later in the day. I know you're usually really thoughtful about taking care of things, so I would feel better if you were on top of that. What do you say? I don't know.
You sounded like you're driving in a car and the sandwich slid over a little bit.
A little sloppy
I
sandwich.
know. We started with tone is everything. I could be great at this. I was trying to be genuine and give a real example that was petty, to be honest, but I find it was simple irritant of mine. And I notice that sometimes I'll just go downstairs and go, you forgot to turn the sound machine off again. It's okay, Meredith, rude. First of all, I can acknowledge, hey, I know you're tired in the morning and we forgot.
Well, you know what that is? That's like a keto feedback sandwich. It's just the meat.
I like that.
Right? Turn off the sound machine.
Okay. I know.
So I have some reservations about this tool.
Yeah. One, so it's a compliment sandwich. A lot of times they feel disingenuous. How do you offer a constructive comment without criticizing? My guess is it's something they can control.
Well, what's wrong with being critical? Maybe that's a better way of saying that. Is it okay to be critical and give feedback, but not be criticizing?
I think 2 things here. Maybe the most primary is, are you talking about the person or their behavior?
That's the great distinction.
So if I say, why are you such a bitch?
That's like personality.
That's not very correctable, but I can say, why are you raising your voice? Those are different, talking about the person and an evaluation of the person versus their behavior. So we would want to say that in this space of both tools, focusing on the behavior is much more manageable than focusing on the person.
Got it.
Remember earlier on, we said, is there a corrective pathway? Meaning, is there something to fix? And if you tell me about my behavior, I can fix my behavior. I can turn the sound machine off. I can make my presentation shorter. I can stop raising my voice. Those are all achievable things that I can do pretty quickly, honestly. And so I think that we would want to make that distinction that when you're giving feedback, very important to focus on behavior and not overall gestalt evaluations of a person.
So I think that's important for the next tool, though, situation behavior impact.
Yeah.
This is also
for both.
Yeah, and I definitely see a big con with this is your tone. It can sound manipulative. It can sound fake.
Here's my concern about this tool. I'm worried about the people pleaser trying to deliver the sandwich.
Oh, yeah. Hands down, I would do this only for that reason. Less is more, I would say to somebody like that.
So my worry is you already are a people pleaser and you don't like to say things that are negative, and you might have so much bun on your sandwich, which is the positive, that we maybe don't even hear the constructive thing you're asking me to do.
Your message gets lost in that.
And we've all had a sandwich where we said, is there anything in this sandwich?
Yeah. Okay. So talking them out of changing anything.
Yeah, maybe. You could get into
too sugar-coated.
Over explaining all kinds of stuff. Another concern I have with this one is if you did it a lot and you did it to me a lot, I might be waiting for the shoe to drop. So here she goes saying I'm a great mother. Here she goes saying I'm a great friend. And now I'm bracing myself for the middle part.
It's like you're getting used to the formula of it.
Fair.
It just depends. But I think the more trouble arises for the people pleaser for sure.
Yeah. I definitely think I like the next tool better.
Well, let's do it.
Okay. So next tool is SBI. Situation, behavior, impact.
Or SBI. Okay.
Yes. What I like about the description of this is 2 words: clear, neutral.
Okay. Break down the components for us.
Okay. Situation. This is when or where a behavior happened. So you're explaining. Then the next is behavior. So what happened? Be specific. Be very specific. Okay. This is not indirect communication at all. So situation, when and where behavior happened, behavior itself. So what did this person do? And the impact. How did it affect you directly or other people? Correct.
Situation, behavior, impact. What's an example?
Hey, last night during dinner, you picked up your phone when I was trying to tell you something about my day. Last night during dinner is a situation, behavior. You picked up your phone when I was trying to tell you something about my day, and the impact. That made me feel disconnected from you and not that important. What that avoids is being sarcastic, focusing on some emotional that would trigger me to be defensive because I'm human, right? So I thought about that example. That would make me go, oh, wow, I do not want you to feel disconnected from me. I do not want you to feel unimportant. I need to focus on what that behavior is doing to somebody I care about. So I like that one.
Okay.
I have a good one, parent to child. I like this one for parents that work from home. It said, hey, earlier today when I was on a work call, you came in and started talking without checking if I was okay to listen to you. Impact. That made it hard for me to focus and I felt frustrated.
Nice. So you can really hear the SBI in there, the formula.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. It's a calm way of explaining what happened, what the behavior was, and why it matters to you personally. Like, I think that's a good one. My husband works from home a lot, for him to say, okay, that makes it hard for me to focus and makes me feel frustrated. Any other examples you guys have up your sleeve?
I think one thing that we should talk about here is it doesn't always have to be negative. So when we talk about feedback, I think a lot of times we think I'm giving you feedback, meaning I'm going to tell you what you did wrong. So you could have a positive version of this as well, which is something I like about this tool. I feel like it does a little better on being flexible in that it could be corrective, but it could also be positive or reinforcing. So for example, during our client dinner on Tuesday night, when we were talking, you handled all those tough questions with poise and thoughtful responses. And I was very impressed. And I thought our client was impressed too.
Yeah.
So it's a formula that I like in the flexibility, because I could say, I want to say something nice to my partner, or I want to say something nice to my coworker. And you can use it. It doesn't always have to be a negative formula.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I think sometimes as overstimulated as I feel, I think I go into like immediately, give me this example because it's negative, but I like this one better, but that's probably an element of what it is. It can be used as a positive feedback example.
Yeah, so it has a little more flexibility than the first one. I'm not saying the first one couldn't be used effectively, but I think this one's interesting because of its ability to go both directions. So you could say, yesterday, Teighlor, when we were having lunch, I mentioned this thing I've been struggling with, and you were so supportive, and that meant a lot to me when I was leaving the lunch.
I feel like the first one, because it can be a little bit cheesy to me, I think works really well with kids. I think I can use that on my kids, and I want to build them up. So I'm like, compliment all day. I think that'd be great, because inevitably I am always asking them to do things and they get annoyed with me. So I should add more compliments to that. But this, I appreciate, especially my partner is a love language person. He needs words of affirmation, and I'm not great at, I'm like, I feel like I tell you all the time, you're the best. But if you're not specific in those things, it's so weightless. And that's where I'm going with this one, is I think I can use this with my partner a lot, because you do want to be specific in what you say.
Yeah. So the sandwich would be like more lower stake things, because it can get cheesy, I think, but maybe lower stake things, especially with maybe younger crowds of people. And then this situation, behavior, impact, I think could be for things that are more specific, positively, or things you need correction on more specifically. Yeah, definitely. Something I liked about this situation, behavior, impact, is a tip on this is to keep the curiosity about the behavior, actually asking genuine questions about this, or being able to invite some response by keeping the story about your experience. I think it reduces at least the potential of someone listening and wanting to get immediately defensive.
One thing that occurs to me is that I think when we're ineffective in feedback is when we make it something that's a fixed evaluation. It's done. Your report was terrible. Dinner was a disaster.
Yeah.
I've announced the ultimate evaluation of it. And so what I like about the SBI tool is it doesn't actually blanket anything. It says, here's the specific context where this thing did this other thing. That's it. You're not a bad father. You're not a bad husband. You're not a bad coworker. It's just when you said that thing, I noticed that this team member didn't want to talk.
You just
anymore.
highlighted something for me, as I know this is about how to give this, but if I were to receive this, it just made me realize not only would it reduce my go-to of being defensive, I know I can go there, but it would make me not want to assume something really quickly. Your tone is calm and it's clear and it's focused on the impact on you. And that makes me not want to assume 10 other stories behind the scenes.
Right. And I think you don't do that as much because you gave a specific context. So when we were at dinner, when you picked up your phone, you didn't say you're always on your phone. Which is one that gets people defensive. And what do they say immediately? No, I'm not. I wasn't yesterday when we had coffee or whatever. And in contrast, you're saying, here's the one time where you did this thing and it had this effect, but I'm not saying you do it every time.
Good.
Yeah.
And then would you put in what you want to see different? You're asking them, maybe would you change this behavior to put that in with this?
That is a great question. This is something in interpersonal communication that's often done where people will have a message format and then they'll add what we call a Z component, which is intention. I need you not to be on your phone in the future. But the only thing I would say about that is I would be careful about adding intention, only that if it's so blatantly obvious, it's don't be on your phone when we're having dinner. I think if it's not obvious, yes. But I think if you did the SBI tool,
It's not needed.
I was looking at, I actually did a little bit of homework of, okay, so how do you...
Wait, hold on. You did homework?
I know.
Interesting. But Teighlor, in 2025, Meredith finally did homework.
Listen, I've got so much more
She
homework
really
than
has
Teighlor,
become
so
a
you all need to
student.
be quiet. At the end of this, though, is there a way to invite a repair or reconnection? Because that's where I struggle, at least as a person with conflict, is learning how do I reconnect them. I've done the giving the feedback. I've learned how to do that. Is there a way to repair or reconnect? And I know this whole podcast episode is about how to give feedback differently, whether you use the sandwich or whether you use situation, behavior, impact. That's a takeaway. Go to work, go do what you do with the rest of the day if you need to, or hop on for an extra 30 seconds. And I looked at 3 things. Okay. You can ask for perspective if you're finding yourself not in a tit for tat moment or whatever, right? So I think that's something like, hey, did you notice what I'm saying? Or did you notice the situation? I think that's an invitation to that. Or you can use collaborative language, like you were saying, right? How can we make sure this doesn't keep happening or happen again? What can we do different? How can we work together to not have that behavior happen again? And another one for me, maybe it was a little cheeseball, but I liked it, which is to affirm the relationship. So my fubbing or picking up the phone while my husband's telling me something would be to say, okay, I care about this because I care about us. I'm not angry with you as a person. I just want us to be connected. And that made me feel disconnected.
Again, I would say I agree with you. I think you have to be careful, though, that you're not condescending when you're saying
Totally.
it.
I think that was the highlight that I loved about Gottman saying is research says your tone matters.
What's saying just tone? I'm saying your language as well. Because here's where it might go bad. So let's do the phone example. I said, when we were having dinner, I noticed you picked up your phone when I started talking about my work project. And that made me feel like you don't care about my work. Whatever. Let's say that's the example. And then we say, so I need you to not pick up your phone. It's pretty obvious. You could do it, but it's kind of like, duh. Or I want us to be close. Could be defensive producing because it's, so you're saying I don't want us to be close?
Okay.
So I'm nervous about the execution of that. But I do love the first one you said, which is, how did you
Maybe
see
that
it?
was the invitation, I think, right?
To asking questions or getting their perspective. Because I think sometimes we could say, you ruined the pancakes with the syrup or something like that.
He got the wrong syrup. I was so specific. I have to say on this is exhausting, right? If you're constantly engaging in these types of communication, trying to fix your relationship. But I do have to say, people I know are just like, I'm not even going to engage in the conversation. It's not worth it. Why start a fight? But I think this is so important. It's these little moments that help us not wake up in 10, 15, 20 years next to a stranger or a roommate. I think these little types of communication are truly important. And sometimes I feel exhausted. I have to have this conversation again. I have to give a loop of feedback. It is a lot of work.
Yes.
These little moments why they say marriage or relationships is so much freaking work. But I really encourage anyone listening. It's worth it. Engage in it. It's hard, but this is the work. This is the work that has to be done.
You integrate it into your regular language. And I like what you said, Teighlor, about that it is hard to work. We have to put in the work because we're educating people all the time about how to treat us. And if you don't say that comment about the phone, or we don't say the comment about the Legos, whatever it is, it's not going to be ever known to that other person. So how can they know that? I don't know that all of us are aware of how we come across or aware of the things that we're doing that might bug somebody, for example. But if you don't say it, I think you're equally responsible for the problem.
Cheers to that.
So the challenge, of course, is to integrate this. And here's what I would say. If you're thinking about this and you're thinking, maybe I'm a people pleaser, maybe I'm somebody who wants the positive more, start with a positive SBI. Start doing some positive comments around the people. People around you will like it for things that are good and start talking about them. And then ultimately, when you get more comfortable with the tool, you can do the corrective SBI.
Good. I like it.
Once again, thank you for joining us today. Please remember to rate, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And thank you for listening to Asking for a Friend.
Let us know what you thought of the episode. Our email is hello@afafpodcast.com. This show is for educational purposes only and is copyrighted. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. Thanks for listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc.